most difficult probably sessions because it's engineering stuff. But I'm so proud that you are so brave to join and to listen to one of the best trainer in the world, expert in the world. I'm not afraid to say this, as I know Ian, and I will tell you a secret that uh, friends that come to our sessions, they come from Ian. So that's why I always thank you him for not bringing his expertise as well, expertise of your group of experts, top level experts. Я перекладу, тобто, колеги, добре, що ви тут, і що ви не побоялись взяти участь в сесії, яка буде звучати англійською, і вона складна, тому що це інженерна така сесія. І дякую Іану, тому що по секрету скажу, що ти його, всі, хто приходять як тренери, вони приходять через Іана. І тому йому особлива подяка, що він не тільки свої знання поширює, а він знання поширює від колег. І за це йому велика подяка. Іан ще не тільки він фахівець безпеки, він дуже класний інженер. І тому ця сесія сьогодні буде технічна, але я точно знаю, що дуже важлива. Всі ми знаємо, що це одна з таких основ, та, в прямому і переносному смислі робота з підземними комунікаціями. So the floor is yours. Yeah. Alexey. Anatoly, yeah? Yeah. Good. So, Ian, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Dobra. Jackie, so thanks for inviting me to speak. I always look forward to these sessions because I learn just as much as you guys do from these sessions as well. Firstly, apologies from my colleague who was scheduled to participate today, Demi. Demi will do another session later on, but his will be more technical, and I'll talk about that later on as well. I've also got another colleague, just so you know who he is, from Alan. Hi, Alan. You want to say something or?
Yeah, I'll say good morning. I've just introduced myself in the chat as well. I've described myself as your farm safety friend, Ian.
Farm safety friend, right? Okay, because I worry that these sessions are a little bit too construction orientated. So Alan is going to help us find other speakers from different sectors as well. So Alan's got a wide experience. So we just want to see what these sessions were about, just to get an idea and feel what we're trying to achieve here. So thanks, Alan. I've just got to try and work out how to share my screen. Share screen number 2. So hopefully you can all hear me and you can see I'm sharing my presentation. Is that correct? Someone give me a thumbs up. Am I sharing it?
Not yet.
No. We can see it. We can see.
Are we good?
Nope, no.
No. Share screen number 2. Share. Right, is that
something's happening? Yep, you're in.
All right, okay. So you can see my PowerPoint slide, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, excellent. So it's my favorite subject, and I did talk about this when I came over in October, but we want to talk a little bit more about it and a little bit more detail about underground services. It's the main job that I have in the UK. Most of my safety work is related to working around and near underground utilities and services in the UK. We have lots and lots of infrastructure that is under the ground, and it's increasingly difficult with the extra number of assets that we're putting into the ground to avoid them. And some can be extremely dangerous, such as electrical cables and high pressure gas, and cause lots of injuries. But also there's other services there that can cause just as much damage to other infrastructure and affect the quality of life of people in our cities, but also affect us commercially as well. So most of my work in the UK revolves around avoiding hitting and damaging underground services. I think it's also important for you in Ukraine. I think as more assets are above ground, could obviously be targeted and damaged. That it is important to ensure that they're safer underground. But we want to make sure that we don't damage services, because we want the utilities workers to be employed doing more productive work than repairing the damage that we're doing to underground pipes and cables ourselves when we carry out work. That's why I think that's an important subject. I could show you lots of videos of people hitting underground electrical cables and people getting injured. I don't think there's any point in that. You know, some underground cables, underground services can cause injuries and burns, but often other service strikes can be just as damaging. So we have a short video here of a service strike, which doesn't look too dramatic to begin with, just someone digging a hole in the street. But you can see that they've had some sort of incident, and now appears that they've hit some sort of water pipe, and very quickly it turns into an annoyance to quite a big, significant incident. You can see the water coming up at various parts in the street as well. The worker looks quite angry. He looks a little bit upset. And not only do we have water now that's going to flood some of the buildings close by, but also it's going to run down the street. I don't know what it's going to affect, what buildings might need to be evacuated now, as well as the costs, but also people who are relying on water now. Maybe their taps don't work. Maybe they don't have access to drinking water now because we've damaged the pipe and it's becoming contaminated. So it's not always about electrical cables and safety. There's other services that can cause damage as well. This is one that happened close to me in the UK. You can see the amount of damage caused here, where we managed to flood a street. So you can imagine all that drinking water is supposed to be going to people's homes, but it's actually flowing down the street, and the amount of effort that's taken to get the water in a drinkable condition then is wasted, as well as the damage that it's causing as well. So it affects all the shops there. Those shops would probably close. Affects fire suppression systems. That affects even the ability of the fire brigade to fight fires, because the water pressure is adversely affected when we've hit the service and we're losing so much water. And this particular incident is quite a significant one that's just been prosecuted in the UK as well. So a lot of people think this is about construction, building, but this is a farmer just putting a fence up in a field, and he manages to drive a wooden post through a high pressure gas pipeline. So that's quite a big explosion, and that required the evacuation of 30 houses. The emergency services, the firefighters had to attend, and the whole village was left without any heating. Fortunately, it was in the summer, so it wasn't a massive problem. But this was just a regular guy putting in some fence posts on his farm. So it's not all about construction activities. It covers all types of industries. Anybody who does anything where you might put something into the ground can be affected. And I think from my perspective, working on behalf of development banks on occasion, when we hit services, that has a massive impact on the ILO sustainability goals. So, I'm often talking about the sustainability goals. These are the ones that affect. So if you damage services to a village, uh, knock the village off water or electricity or heating, you have a negative effect on a lot of the ILO sustainability goals. So a lot of my work in different countries does actually involve working with organizations and governments to help prevent those utilities from being damaged. So you can't have good education if you don't have decent internet access or electricity to schools, for instance. clearly you can't have sustainable communities if you don't provide services. So you don't have decent growth and economic growth if you don't have access to websites, that type of thing. I was talking to an organization yesterday as well about education. And one of the things that we talked about is developing countries in Africa, where a lot of education is hindered by the lack of internet access. There's lots of research papers and lesson material, but if you don't have internet access, you can't access that education. So people start to fall behind again. So it's much bigger than just safety. There's lots of other things that are affected by damage to underground services. Also, the costs. The costs can be astronomical. This is another incident in the UK where an individual was putting a fence up in his garden on his property. He managed to hit an electricity cable that turned off the electricity to his entire village, and he had to pay compensation to the utility company of £24,000. That's how much it cost to repair the cable. And that's before potentially he could get fined for a health and safety offence because he was a builder. So it affects everybody, whether you're doing big construction work or just small maintenance work on your property. Everyone potentially could hit an underground pipe or cable. Such as this individual. So this individual is doing some work, putting up some fence posts. I don't even think this is a work activity. I think this is someone just on the edge of their property putting in a fence post. So I quite like that, just the way he runs away, rather strangely. But notice it's not a big injury, a big incident, but it could have been a lot worse. Some fires and explosions from electrical discharges can be huge. And this guy's only wearing shorts and a t-shirt. So in the UK, a lot of workers will wear special protective clothing when working around underground services to prevent people from getting burned if there is a bigger fire and explosion. So what type of services are struck in the UK? Well, we get statistics in the UK of the number of utilities that are damaged every year. And by far the biggest amount of services that are damaged are underground gas pipes. Now, the reason for that is generally because most of them are plastic. So later on, a lot of this presentation is going to be talking about how do we find these services, and plastic pipes are very, very difficult to find. So I think that's why most of them are hit. Electrical low voltage cables are quite high as well. And I think just because there's so much of it about, you go to any city in the UK or in Europe, that everything now has electricity to it. Bus stops, traffic signals, signs have little lights on them. So there's so much electrical low voltage equipment in streets nowadays. It's just really difficult to avoid it. And then the grey one on this chart is BT minor. BT are the telecommunications provider in the UK. So these are phone lines. So lots of phone lines installed in the UK are installed really, really poorly. Okay, they're shallow, they're not installed very well. And to give you the idea of how difficult it is to find these types of services, we have a lot of fibre optic in the UK. Now, fibre optic cable to my house is the width of a human hair. So that is how small the cable is to my property. It carries lots and lots of data and internet and is really fast, but it's really difficult to find. So they've put it inside a duct to our properties. So we have a small plastic pipe that the fibre optic is installed to. So hopefully we can find that, but generally that service is very, very difficult to find and very poorly installed most of the time. How are they damaged? Most of the time it's with an excavator or a machine. So excavators and machinery should not be used within 500 millimeters of a service. That's a rule we have in the UK. You find out where the underground pipe or cable is, and you don't put any machinery within 500 millimeters of that service. So that's one of the rules that we have, but often we don't know where they are, so we end up working too close to them and causing damage. And most of the time, we find that services that are damaged are not put in very well, and they're quite shallow, so they're not very deep into the ground. So, as I said, most services are damaged with less than 500 millimeters in the ground. So theoretically, we shouldn't be using powered hand tools or machinery when working near them. So that makes it really difficult if we're working in a high street environment. How do we then cut the concrete or asphalt above the cable to do some work on it? And we have about 30,000 pipe and cable damage incidents every year in the UK. So we have lots of statistics. Some of these statistics are as follows. Plans are available. So 86% of the time, people who hit services generally have drawings. So sometimes they don't. Now, in the UK and most of Europe, it is a requirement for whoever owns the pipe or cable to keep a record of where it is. So you should be able to go to the utility company, to the electric company or the gas company, and they should be able to tell you if there is a cable near where you are and provide a drawing. In the UK, we have systems where we can do it within 4 or 5 minutes. If I get time at the end, I might show you how that actually works. So I can get any drawing for any utility in the UK within 3 or 4 minutes. The same as in Australia. You just phone one government body and they source drawings and information on where services are if you're doing any work near them. So plans are available, but as you can see, the next bullet point is plans reported as accurate is actually quite low. So often when we get drawings, they're not very good anyway. So they don't tell you what you need to know. So we don't rely on them. The next two bullet points, method statements and risk assessments, we have safe systems of work. So we consider how we're going to work around services. That's generally okay. And then the next two bullet points are CATs and Jennies. Now, a CAT is a cable avoidance tool. So this is fairly standard in the UK. If we're going to do any ground penetrating work at all, what we'd do is we'd use a CAT, a cable avoidance tool, to try and locate the position of the services. So if we know there's something there, we can then work safely around it. Now, those two things I'm going to explain in a lot more detail as this presentation goes on, and I'll explain why at the end. And if we think there's a service there, electric pipe or cable in the area, then we would normally dig carefully by hand to expose it so we can see where the service actually is. Okay. We don't do that very well. Normally we just get the machines out, and that's why we end up damaging lots of services. Now, the UK's health and safety executive do prosecute various companies when they damage underground pipes and cables, especially when people get injured. They also publish prosecutions on the HSE website. So this is the labour inspector. And they give details. And as a safety professional, I often look at these details because it gives me an idea of what the inspectors are looking for and the types of questions that they'll ask me if I'm involved in an accident. So this was a contractor called Volga Infra. They hit a cable with an excavator. It was a 275,000 volt electric cable, and the flash was so bright it burned the eye of the machine driver. So he suffered blindness in one eye because of the intensity of the explosion. The company was prosecuted, and the labour inspector made this comment: the existing live cable had not been adequately identified by the team working on behalf of Volga Infra. That's the contractor. And so the surface markings for the cable location were incorrect by around 50 centimeters. So that's quite a big statement. So in the UK, when I'm working with clients, that's the first question I ask them. I'll ask the question of you. If you're doing any work on your premises, do you know where the underground pipes and cables are? And are you more accurate than 50 centimeters? So in the UK, that's what the expectation would be. You find where that pipes and cables are, and I want to know where they are with an accuracy of 50 centimeters. So that's quite an important statement that now we have to follow in the UK. By the way, this company got fined nearly £1 million for hitting this electric cable. So you can see the fines in health and safety are massive sometimes in the UK. This is another one where a housing company hit an underground cable again. This individual suffered burns to his face, but you can see the labour inspector made a similar comment. They never provided any information to the employees on the location of the underground services and did not provide suitable equipment to detect and safely excavate around underground services. So they didn't give them any drawings and they didn't give them any detection equipment to try and locate where pipes and cables were. So that's why the company got prosecuted. This one was £500,000. So it gives you an idea of the seriousness of the event. So how do we detect pipes and underground cables? Well, this is what we're talking about when we talk about CAT, stands for Cable Avoidance Tool. Now, last time I came to Lviv, I did leave a couple of these with the university. I don't know where they are now. And Alex, my colleague who came with us, did demonstrate the use of these to some of you. I think for those of you who were there. And this device has a number of aerials inside it, which picks up electromagnetic fields. Those electromagnetic fields are given off by metallic objects in the ground or electric fields from electric cables. And it measures the strength of those fields, and then it will determine where the service is located. It has different modes. So the first mode is finding live electrical cables. Now, the cable has to be live. It has to have electricity going through it. Otherwise, it won't find it. Okay, so at different times of the day, there's different electricity being used in the property. So I'm at home at the moment. My wife has gone out. And so there's no electricity being used in the house. So later on in the evening, when I turn the oven on to cook a meal, then we'll be using lots of electricity and then the cable will become live. So if I use the CAT in power mode right now, I probably couldn't find the cable to my house. But in the evening, when I'm using lots of electricity, then I would. Okay. The second mode is radio mode, where it picks up linear metallic objects. So if I turned it into radio mode, it would find the cable even if it hasn't got any electricity in it. Okay. It also finds metal pipes and so on. So anything that's metal but fairly long in the ground, it will find it. And then it has another mode with a signal generator, which I'll talk about in a minute. And they have different features. This particular one links to Bluetooth and also maps its location as well. So some of them are really, really good. Okay. The signal generator does something different. That sends out a specific frequency that's not used anywhere else. Okay. That frequency I can then put into a pipe or a cable, and then I can trace just that pipe and cable. So if you imagine in the street, there might be 3 or 4 different electricity cables and maybe 2 pipes. And it's really difficult to scan to work out which one is which and where they all are exactly. So if I use a signal generator, I can put a signal in each individual service one by one, and I can trace them accurately. Okay, so I can work out the exact locations of each individual service, and I'll show you how that works. Still with me? Okay, so if you imagine there's a pipe or cable in the ground, that's what it looks like, and this is the electromagnetic field that comes off the service. So as the cat moves into that field, it will start to make a noise, and there will be a visual display window which shows you how strong the strength is. And as you come directly over the service, you'll reach a high point, and then as you move away, the signal will start to disappear. So you move backwards and forwards till you find the strongest part of the signal. So I've got a short video, and these are the videos that we use for training. So I'll show you some of them to show you how it works. Now, I hope you can hear me talking on the video. So can you please tell me if you don't hear me talking, okay?
No sound at all.
No sound?
Yep.
Okay. So if I do this then, how do I share sound? Share. Advanced sharing options. How do I share the sound then?
There should be somewhere the ticking box in share sound before you start presenting.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But I can't see it. Captions breakout dots. So share. One participant, advanced sharing options. Share sound. Oh, right, I got it. Okay. I think this will work. Should we start again? Right. Can you see me on the screen? That good-looking
Yes.
fella in the high-vis clothing.
We can see him, but play some sound.
Electric service.
Yes, okay, fine.
With no electricity in it, we wouldn't pick up a signal. So if it was a metallic pipe, for argument's sake, the power mode would not pick that up. So I've now put the cat in radio, and we'll try again. And you can hear a slightly different sound. That's a metallic object in the ground. And it's the same location as our electric cable, so it's probably that cable. So it looks to be about at this location. Turn, signal loss, turn back again. So it looks to be about here.
So you can see they're relatively easy pieces of equipment to use. So that's in radio mode because we're looking for a cable, but there's no electricity going through the cable. So I think it's in that location there. What I want to do is try and accurately identify it. So the signal generator generates the 32 and 131 kilohertz signal. So if I put that on the ground, that puts a signal in anything underneath it. So that means I can be more accurate with tracing the service. So this is where the generator becomes more important. And the other thing I can do with the signal generator is work out the depth of a service as well. So I'll show you how that's used.
So we know the electrical cable runs down to that scar in the road, but I've got to do some work on that road. So I really would like to know how deep that is before I start doing any work. Now, to do that and to be accurate in my tracing, I need to attach the signal generator, which is down here. Now, the cable doesn't appear anywhere above ground, so what I'm going to have to do is try and identify its location. Which appears to be around here. I'm going to turn the signal generator on. That's going to put a signal into the service under the ground, and then we're going to try and trace it down there. So that's what I'm now going to try and do.
So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That's where I'm standing, where I think the cable goes. So I'll put the signal generator on top of it, which means I'm putting a specific signal into the cable under the ground. So I think it goes under where this piece of road has been cut. So I want to know exactly where the cable is, and I want to know how deep it is, which is what we'll do in the next video.
So we picked up the electrical cable, we think, in this scar in the road, but I want to be more accurate and I want to know the depth of the service. So we've set the signal generator up there. I've now put the cat in signal generator mode. So we should pick up the signal that the signal generator is inducing into the power cable in this scar. So I'm going to squeeze the trigger.
Just before I go on, if you're wearing headphones, this makes a really high-pitched noise in a second, so you might need to turn the volume down. So I'm just giving you a bit of a warning, okay?
Trouble is, that's the signal directly from the signal generator, so I need to dial that out a little bit by adjusting the sensitivity down. So it's just altered just to signal loss. So it's right on the edge of signal. So as I move forward, I'll start to get a signal. I'll need to turn it down a little bit. So once we get to full power, we'll reduce the sensitivity a little.
So hopefully you can see in the window, there's a little bar that goes up and down, so I can be really super accurate on finding out where that surface is. So I am really, really confident that there is an electrical cable underneath the middle of this scar in the road. So these are really, really good pieces of equipment to use to identify where the service is. Now, I did say most services are hit at 500 mil of depth. So the next thing I need to know is how deep is it? So this particular cat does measure depths as well. So I'll show you how that works.
Yep. Okay, so I've taped up the speaker so it doesn't distract us from the sounds that are going on. So as I locate the service again, first thing before doing the depth measurement, we need to make sure we are over the strongest part of the signal, which it appears to be. Need to make sure that the blade of the cat is actually on the ground and it's level. So I'm going to press this button and it's giving me a reading of 0.097. Now you want to do several of these along the area that we're actually scanning, so I'm going to do another one. I'm just going to come over a little bit further. Locate the service again, that's the strongest part of the signal. And depth, 0.97. So hopefully we can build up a consistent picture of the depth, and hopefully that'll give us some more confidence.
So if you remember, I said in the UK we can't put a powered hand tool or a machine within 500 mil of a service. So now I know it's nearly a meter deep. I know I can use a machine on top of the service because I know it's a meter away. Okay. Obviously, there's more to it than this because it gets more complicated the more services there are. So there's different ways of identifying services and their depths as well. Now, if there's more than one service, as I said, I could put a signal into just the one pipe or cable. So in this case, we're trying to trace a streetlight cable. Now, during the day, the streetlight won't be on, so there'll be no electricity in the cable. So they're notoriously difficult to find. But I can use the signal generator in a different mode, and I can ensure the signal only goes into that streetlight cable. So even though there might be lots of other cables in the same area, I know I'm tracing just the streetlight cable. And there's a different connection as well, which just does the same thing, but in a different way. So I've got lots of opportunities to survey to pick out individual cables and pipes to make sure I trace just that individual pipe and cable and I determine its depth. That way I can then make a decision on what to do next. Now, cats and jennies don't pick up everything. So there are some important things to understand and why it's important to have a drawing. So this is an electrical drawing I just got this morning, actually, just for another piece of work I'm doing. It's quite interesting. You can see, I said earlier that drawings are not very good in the UK. Can you see some of these electrical cables? This electrical cable head doesn't seem to go anywhere, just sort of starts and finishes. And this one just sorts of finishes as well. So I'm not entirely sure that this drawing is actually accurate. There's lots of stuff missing. But what is important is where these cables just end, like this particular cable here just travels. I presume you can all see my cursor on the screen, yeah? Yeah? There? Okay. So where cables don't go anywhere, the cat cannot pick it up. So cats don't pick up cables that don't go to anything. So it has to be a cable that goes to something. So this particular cable that goes past where it says performing arts, the cable avoidance tool won't find that. It needs to be connected to something to create a circuit, not just finishing the ground. The other thing cats don't pick up is loops. So I'd be able to find this cable, but part of the cable is looped round. I wouldn't be able to find that with the cat because it distorts the signal. So there's different things that I have to be aware of when I'm using the cable avoidance tool. This is a gas drawing. So in the UK, our gas drawing also marks what the pipe is made of. So you can see here, this particular pipe here has ST, that's steel. So it's metal. I could find that pipe with the cat, and I could find this pipe with the cat. These other pipes that are marked PE, they're polyethylene, they're plastic. So I would not be able to find those pipes with the cat. Now in the UK, if we have a plastic pipe, sometimes we put a metal wire on top of the pipe. If there's a metal wire on top of the plastic pipe, then I can find it. So that's how we make it easier for people to find services. So here's a plastic pipe. You can see it's been damaged and someone's taped it up. And there's an electrical cable that runs underneath it. So I'd find the electrical cable with the cat, but I wouldn't be able to find the plastic pipe above. Those types of things I can't detect with cable avoidance tools. But if I can gain access to the pipe, I can use a device called a sonde. A sonde is a wire that I can push into the pipe, and if I can push the wire in, then I can find it. So we use this in the UK to find drains, sewers, and ducts. So where you've got a duct for cables, we can track them accurately as well. Okay, so I can find most things apart from plastic pipes with this type of equipment. And once they've been detected, then we mark them up on the ground. So this is where we've marked a service. So there appears to be an electrical cable because it's marked in red. The dot indicates there's one cable, and then the line indicates how accurate the surveyor thinks they are. So I would then dig to the side of that to try and identify where that cable is. I wouldn't dig directly above that because he hasn't included the depth of the service, so maybe he doesn't know. But he's fairly confident it's in this location. So we'd dig down to the side to see how deep it is. Then we'd make other decisions about how we would dig around the service. So I think I showed this video in October. I couldn't remember when I came. A lot of services in the UK now, when we dig around services, we use vacuum excavation. So we don't tend to use machinery. If the ground conditions are good enough, we'll take one of these machines to the site, which sucks the soil out of the services. And we've had a massive reduction in the damage to underground pipes and cables in the UK. So we just use an air lance that sucks the soil out of the ground around the pipe or cable, and then we tip it and then move it away somewhere else. So really, really safe technique to use. I want to show the video because the guy who manufactures these has got lots of different types as well. So there's another day if you're interested in this sort of equipment to see more of it. There are ones which are relatively small and tracked machines to ones that are big lorry mounted things. So initially when they started, they were just lorries that would be used to clean out drains. I don't know, you must have lorries that clean out drains in Ukraine that suck debris material out of drains alongside the road, maybe. That's all these machines are. So they've been refined a little, but there's different ways that we can use to dig services, and they're very, very quick and very efficient. They're much quicker than people digging with hand tools, shovels and spades. So we find them really most efficient. And all work is carried out under permits. So the permits that we have in place checks that we've seen the drawings. The drawings have been checked, so we know where the services are. A CAT scan has been carried out, and there are marks on the ground showing people where services are before they start work. And we have permit systems like this in place, so we check all of the correct steps are undertaken before we move to do any work. And that way we ensure we're in the safest possible position before we actually start the work activity. Okay. I'm conscious. How much time have I got, Olga? I've been talking nearly 3/4 of an hour now, haven't I? I'm just conscious of time. I'll keep going.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please. Yes. If, or dear colleagues, just write your questions, in chat.
Okay.
Probably.
I'll be brief. I've only got a couple more slides to go through. The reason I wanted to do this particular presentation is because this is going to be the source of our next trip to Ukraine. Hopefully in a couple of months' time. We have a number of sets of cable avoidance tools that we can bring with us next time. We did bring 2, and so we can come back and we can bring some more equipment to carry out this type of activity. So I'm interested, if you're interested in having some of this equipment and whether you think that'll be beneficial and of use to you. Our intention is to come, deliver the equipment and much more detailed training about how to use it and how to operate it to be able to survey for underground services. So I think I put this slide up when I was in Lviv in October, and this is Ilhom. We've done this before. We took Ilhom some cable avoidance tools in Tajikistan, and Ilhom now has his own little business surveying and identifying where pipes and cables are for construction companies. So he's the only person who's got this equipment in the country, and he can now generate some income from that about supporting construction companies, because people like me from the banks will ask, what are you doing as a company to prevent damage to underground services? And they now say, we use Ilhom. He surveys, he carries out scans for us to identify where those services are before we begin work. So we have that equipment that we can bring over. Okay, so I'm interested, I guess, speak to Olga about what your thoughts are about that. But we have a number of sets that we intend to bring and then train people using those videos that you've just seen and going through the whole process of how to identify services, mark them up, and then select a safe digging technique to work around them.
Yeah.
And Demi wants to do another session a little bit later because there is more detailed equipment which will give you better information. So what Demi does is radar surveys. So this is a radar survey of an underground service. These peaks here are services, and one of them is a water service. So he can be much more accurate. And what he can also do is with technology, hang on, hopefully you can see something different on my screen now. So you can see, let me come out here. So this is an underground 3D model of some services at a traffic point in the UK, where I can show you a 3D model that you can walk around. Now, Demi can create digital twins of projects of underground and above ground assets. That's what his thing is. He's very much into technology, carrying out surveys, which is really useful because he does it on some projects, and I can transport you anywhere in the world and see a project from anywhere in the world without having to travel there. So this particular area, you can now go underneath the road in this particular area and see where all those pipes and cables are. So there's much more technology in what Demi wants to discuss in his presentation. Okay. So that's all I wanted to talk about today, just to give you an idea of what the equipment is that we intend to bring on our next trip. And I'm interested in getting your views and opinions about well, if we should or what else we could do to help support in our next trip. Is that okay for everybody?
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, impressive as usual. One more question. So first of all, thank you. Your equipment, of course, I'm sure is kept by Lviv University. The question is roughly how much does it cost, and what should we think about, how should we calibrate it or certify, or just which requirements to users. Thank you.
We think 15 sets, which will all be calibrated, and they can be calibrated, but just by plugging them into a computer and connecting them to the internet, they self-calibrate themselves. There is a supplier in Kyiv, but as far as I know, he hasn't sold any yet. So that's something we need to discuss, Olga, because we need to speak to him. He's quite keen to support it because I don't think anyone in Ukraine has these equipment. So once you do, I think what he'll probably do is offer to sell you a more expensive one for for trading in the old one. So it gets you started. These pieces of equipment are around $1,000 each if you buy them. So that's quite expensive to buy, but this is a start, and this is a training and learning aid. So we can put you in connection with the people who, or with a person who can service and maintain them. But really, you just plug them into the internet and they service and calibrate themselves. So that can be done remotely.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, and for the UK, is it absolutely normal? Is demand to use such equipment, or just a demand to make sure that there are no, some utility pipes, hidden pipes, and so on? So
yeah, in the in the UK, every construction company and utilities company and local authority, anybody who's digging a hole will use a piece of that equipment. And some of it is hired, some of it is owned by the companies, but everyone will use them. As I said, that is most of my work in the UK, is helping people get this equipment, use it properly, have the right management systems in place to make sure that's done. It also is some of the systems are documented as well, so they automatically connect to the internet, so people know that they're being used correctly as well. So we can even see if someone's not using it properly. We'll phone them up and tell them. So very, very, very common in the UK.
Super, thank you very much. So dear colleagues, do you have any questions? Колеги, питання від вас.
Yeah, I have one question. As I understood, in UK, it's common sense use this equipment.
Yeah.
And most of company, I suppose, have some procedure or instruction for you for this equipment.
Yes. So there's significant training courses, different types of training courses. The training courses that we propose to deliver is the training course recommended by the manufacturer. So it comes from the manufacturer's training. So yeah, the procedure normally is, depending on the work, if it's planned work or reactive work. So if you have to go and do something immediately, like a burst water pipe, then the procedure is normally to arrive. If you can get a drawing quickly, in the UK you can. you can get a drawing off your phone within 5 minutes, but sometimes it's harder. So we might then just carry out a CAT scan and determine whether we've found a service or not, and then decide how to proceed. So that's what the permit does. The permit then is a check that have we gone through the procedure correctly, and then if we have, then we can go ahead and start to dig.
Thanks. Because in my past practices, I saw only use project plans, like only scheme, these pipes or other type of underground communication, only on paper, without like equipment, like this equipment.
And even in the UK, where we think we're really good, over half of our drawings are wrong. Most of the time, when we hit something, the pipe is 5 or 6 meters away from where it said it was on the drawing. So drawings are useful, but we never trust them. So that's why we carry out our own surveys. And the higher the risk, the more detailed the survey is. So if we were working on a military base, for instance, or a hospital, we would use radar because that's very, very accurate. So we make sure we don't hit any services. So in the street, a cable avoidance tool would be good enough. There's different levels of equipment as well. Debbie will talk about that next time.
Right. Great, thank you. So, colleagues, as Ian said, so there is a plan to make training in Ukraine live, hopefully in May, so fingers crossed. And of course, we will send the invitation to everyone, and you will then decide if you can join. Hopefully, it will be fruitful for everyone. So, any questions or any comments? If not, just
a little comment. Would you like? It's about not a question, about kind of proposition. I have a lot of colleagues that work in some kind of wastewater treatment systems, and they would like to hear about the sewage systems in Great Britain. So how you monitor them. This is just a proposition. I don't know, could you do that or not, but it could be interesting for them, how you monitor, how you adapt, how you use modern technologies in that area. So just a proposition, but I have one question about your technology, CAD technology that you presented, about the surfaces that they can penetrate. I saw the asphalt, I saw the ground without some kind of without any kind of protection. But how about the concrete or maybe solid rock? Can it penetrate?
Yes, it can penetrate down to between 2 and 4 meters. So if you use the CAT on its own, it can measure down to 2 meters. If you use the signal generator, it can measure down to 4 meters. The main thing that affects its ability to scan sometimes is water. So if you're in a heavily waterlogged ground, it's difficult. And also, if the concrete is reinforced, if you have concrete reinforcement, if there's a mesh, then obviously there'll be lots of metal which can then interfere with signals. However, if you use the signal generator and you can attach to the service you're looking for, then that signal will be stronger than the mesh, so you can be accurate. So, I mean, I've just done a very sort of basic 45-minute talk on that particular subject. Over the course of an entire day, you get to learn a lot more of these tricks. And with this piece of equipment, it's really interesting. I'm a trainer for it, but the people who use it over the years then understand that it's like riding a bicycle, right? I can teach you, but you need the experience in why it finds this, but then it doesn't find this. And so people, as you gain more experience with it, you understand how the equipment works in much more detail.
Okay, thank you.
In answer to your other question, Alex, who normally comes with me, is the head of wastewater project delivery in one of the biggest water companies in the UK. So all of my my three biggest clients are all water companies. So you tell me what you want. I can get you so much detail and speakers from the water company. So I have got a speaker who has not confirmed yet, but he's the head of safety for one of the water companies. So I've asked him to come and just do a presentation on how contractors are managed in the UK around wastewater. And if there's any particular subject that you're interested in, then feel free to get in touch with me and what the subject is, and then we can find a speaker. I have so many water industry speakers. Everyone works in the water industry.
This is super. It's would be great. Would be great. Thank you.
And we can't call it wastewater in the UK. You have to call it recyclable water.
No. I bet you understand that what they want. Want some kind of that you maybe share some advices, technologies, or ideas. How do you work in UK with wastewater systems? How you monitor them? And on and on and on. Especially stormwater. This is quite crucial right now in our country. So.
Yeah, stormwater in the UK is not very good. If you see the UK news, every time there's a storm in the UK, all of our systems overflow into the rivers.
Same here. This is the global problem I see, but it could be interesting.
But the other thing can I talk about the other thing we're doing, Olga? So the other thing that we wanted.
Just let me jump. Thanks to this club, we finally found proper people, because it was the first, idea of let's find a company, huge company, treatment plants that we can share our experience, and I couldn't manage it, but now we have. So first of all, my suggestion. So now I put my ESOS post. The mail, so you can write and just ask your question. I forward to Ian, but also you can use our mailbox of our English club. Natalie, please write now in the chat, and then to our groups, and so just be in connect, and we will definitely make more and deeper and go deeper directly to companies and show what British companies have. I'm sure that you will share this experience. Is it correct? Yeah.
And so when we come back, one of the big things we do want to do is talk about confined spaces, because that's a big risk in the wastewater industry as well, working with gases. So we intend to do quite a bit of work around that as well. Alex obviously will be with me when we come back, but as I said, we have two. Tell me exactly what sort of speakers that you want and what subjects that you want, and then we'll provide them. Whilst out, So
I will connect with all hubs. We will figure that out.
No problems. I'll just get Alex on just to do a presentation about anything really, and then you can talk to him as well. But also, don't forget, we've got Alan here as well. He's got a wealth of knowledge in the agricultural sector as well. So he's a former labour inspector as well. So, we've got lots of opportunity to find the speakers that you want. So just keep communicating and telling me what you want, and then we'll find the right speakers. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
And so, yes, OHS Inc. Club UA. It's a Gmail of our club, and so if you no, it's okay. Yeah, you can just easily reach every of our speakers.
If I could just add to that, Ian, too, and if any of your members, your colleagues, would like to hear anything specific out of Ian's area of expertise in the rural agricultural safety, tree work, forestry, etc., we can run some sessions for you all collectively, or specific smaller groups if that's the best way to do it. But just let Ian know which topics you'd like to cover. So I've got a few ideas, but I would like to make sure we deliver what you need to know. And incidentally, Ian, another ex-colleague from HSE, Labour Inspector, who has specialised in railways for many years, he's willing to help you too.
There you go, Olga. Railways as well. Look, we always look for railway people.
I need. So thank you. So I will contact you, Alan.
You can get my email and communicate directly. I think we're hooked up on LinkedIn possibly, but anyway, yeah.
We can arrange.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, so thank you, dear colleagues, for your time, and have safe, good work, and thank you, our speakers, for all your help that you provide.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.